What's up, guys? This is SanchoWest, and this is the Last of Us 2 panel at E3, at the E3 Coliseum. As you can see in the graphic right behind me, this is going to have Neil Druckmann, Anthony Newman, and Kurt Margenau. I am really excited just to hear what this game is a little bit more about, maybe to give it a little bit more of the story. Naughty Dog is notorious for not giving anything at panels, so in terms of what they showed you. So let's see what they have in store for us today. I'm very excited to support Naughty Dog, not only because I love their games, but I've known Kurt. Kurt was the first person that I met from Naughty Dog at a random party in LA. I'm sure you guys heard the story forever, but Kurt Margenau, without him, I would not be here today. So I owe a lot to Kurt Margenau and Anthony Newman, such a nice guy. All the times I stream with him, every time I see him at the studio is awesome. And of course, Neil Druckmann is the legend. I've met him countless times, and it just every time I meet him, it's just I am always like shocked. So let's go ahead and do this panel right. Let's do this.
Please welcome Lucy O'Brien.
Hello, everyone.
A little heavy on my left here.
Welcome. I just want to thank you all so much for a closer look at The Last of Us Part 2. Now, obviously, we saw that incredible demo at Sony's showcase last night, but if you are anything like me, you want to sit Naughty Dog down and pick their brains until they are hollow husks for more details. And that is what we are going to do, hopefully, this morning. Now, I would love to introduce our guests from Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann, writer and director.
Nice.
Welcome, Neil. And co-game directors Anthony Newman and Kurt Margenau.
Make sure nothing else is on. I hear random voices.
Welcome,
but it
guys.
could be just
Now,
a hot mic
how
somewhere.
do you feel after last night?
Let's see.
World. And then last night we got our first look at gameplay. So, I mean, what did you want to convey to the audience with the demo you showed last night? What was your primary sort of message there?
Well, first we really obviously wanted to show off the new things that we're doing with gameplay. So we have like a ton of new mechanics that we're super excited about in terms of traversal, like jumping over gaps and squeezing through shelves and stuff, the new prone moveset that Ellie has, all the new melee features that we have. But in addition, I think what we're trying to do with every kind of taste of the game that we're revealing is kind of create an arc that runs parallel to the game, like kind of a narrative by way of like what we're revealing, that everything is like kind of an additional piece of the puzzle. So the enemies that Ellie's facing in this demo are the same enemies that you saw in the Paris trailer and stuff. So there's kind of a connection that's running through everything.
And, let's talk about gameplay, because this is what we saw last night. What's been your primary philosophy behind gameplay in the sequel?
I mean, it's about tension. Like, that's what The Last of Us is. So when we are thinking to expand on, the great core set of mechanics that The Last of Us had, we're thinking about how do we make Ellie feel like she's more connected with the environment, being able to squeeze under things, being able to squeeze through things, and just interacting with the environment in a way that feels more realistic, more human, more like when you see grass, I can hide in it, kind of. And with the AI, with the way that the AI kind of redid the searching and the way they talk to each other, call each other by name, just bringing up the level of fidelity and realism so that the enemies don't just feel like video game enemies, they're like real people that communicate.
Yeah, and the greater the threat is, and by advancing the AI the way we have and making them human, the way like they reference each other by name, as you see in the demo, that's like a new tech that we developed for this game, we're increasing the desperation and the obsession that Ellie has to pursue this goal. So all the systems are working in concert to put you in alignment with Ellie on this kind of what we're hoping is going to be a very, very intense journey.
Now, we played as Ellie a little bit in the original. Then we played as her a lot in Left Behind. Are we basically going to see the sort of similar gameplay as Left Behind? Is it going to feel like Left Behind, or are you tailoring it even further?
We're expanding things a lot. So one thing that's like really been driving us is we get inspired by sequels that kind of don't play it safe, that take risks with the mechanics and really try to like take things to the next level and expand things. So the game is centered on Ellie, but just in general, everything from stealth to live combat, crafting, every system traversal is kind of taken to the next level. So even though you're playing this character that you know and love, she's picked up a lot of new tricks in the 5 years since The Last of Us Part 1. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really new experience for people. There's going to be a lot more options.
So this game centered around Ellie.
Yeah, I think we've done and Left Behind is we had 2 timelines that we were playing with and kind of jumping back and forth, and that's something that is an intriguing way to tell a story. And at least in this demo, you're seeing 2 times and where the story takes place, and maybe that expands further.
Let's so cryptic,
he says
Neil,
with a
as
smirk.
always. Let's talk about combat. How has combat evolved since the original?
A lot of people noticed in the demo online, I saw where it's like, oh, look, can you dodge? So yeah, you can dodge. That is like a core part of the melee now. So it's like part of the goal was to have deeper engagements with enemies, being able to fight two-on-one or multiple enemies at the same time, and having that extra ability to move and react and all these contextual dodges and animations and planting off of surfaces and attacking and like, yeah, great finishers. I'm sure you could speak to the melee designer on Last of Us 1, Anthony Newman.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it all already, but I think in terms of combat in general, we're looking for a lot more options for the player. Like, when you feel like you're kind of really in this situation with these like very realistic humans hunting you down that you have to overcome, I think it puts you like in Ellie's place and makes you feel this tension. And our goal is to kind of create a lot of opportunities for creative play, for taking down these enemies of like, oh, could I potentially hide under this car? What's that going to get me? And you kind of are able to create these like kind of emergent moments of interplay between your own abilities and the abilities of the AI. And it creates, for honestly, some really exciting moments.
And a lot of the new mechanics, even though they might seem simple on paper, they really afford much wider, more complex layouts that the player can play with as Ellie. So crawling, for example, now opens up all these crawl spaces and places you can hide and places where you can go in grass. And we have a stealth mechanic that's analog stealth. So when you're in grass, you're never completely hidden. It depends on what your stance is and how thick the grass is. Likewise, we now have a jump button. So just having like first Last of Us didn't have a jump. Now we have a jump, so we can get much more vertical with our combat spaces.
Interesting.
So the combat becomes much more dynamic, which leans into Ellie.
That changes a
lot.
lot.
She's smaller than Joel. She's not as physically opposing. So she needs all these different ways to overcome her opposition in the ways that he couldn't.
That changes
So
a lot.
See less ladders.
Most
this
likely
time
it's being
around?
multiplayer
Now
with the
we've got a
jumping.
jump button, or
Can't comment on the ladder
No,
situation.
no comment on ladders or pallets.
We've mentioned tension. Obviously, the last.
I apologize
of
for the
Us
sound, man.
kind of felt
Balance. Her
at
mic is a lot.
times like
She's
a
speaking a lot
survival
louder than the other
because
guys.
of the scarcity of resources. Is that going to be a returning feature where you kind of have to scramble and make do with what you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads into the crafting, and we're rethinking our weapon upgrades and player upgrades things. When we thought about crafting and how we evolve it for the next game, we didn't want to just like add a million things to craft. We want those decisions to be important when whatever resources you have, that trade-off of the Molotov or the health kit from Last of Us 1 is a core tenet of the combat in the moment to moment. So we wanted to have more of those choices and kind of expand where it made sense. So yeah, we have like different ammo types for the arrow, for example. The exploding arrow is a new feature. So yeah, that's kind of our philosophy with the crafting.
In terms of tension, I think the kind of catchphrase we always would use with The Last of Us, which I think is accurate, is survival action. And I think what's really cool about the formula of the game is these moments of like extreme foreboding and tension that kind of explode into action, like the 2 versus 1 melee, where it's like, oh, it's really crazy for a second, and then you get overwhelmed, then you hide again. So it's kind of this cocktail of like pretty intense frenetic action. I think like being able to jump and like squeeze through stuff and the dodge, like all of that stuff adds to kind of that frenetic moment. And then the prone and all the stealth options kind of add to the tension moment.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about stealth. Tell me what we should expect from sort of traversal through this world.
Basically, obviously, like we've been mentioning, Ellie's got a bunch of new traversal options that neither she nor Joel had in the first game. So one thing, again, like all these things sound small, but when you actually play these setups, like it's amazing the options that it gives you. So being able to squeeze through tight gaps and kind of get quick flanks on your opponents, it's such a cool option to be able to kind of integrate into your combat experience. And obviously, prone's another big thing. So hiding in crawl spaces, we have this incredibly lush and like beautiful naturalistic world. So being able to integrate the vegetation into hiding from your enemies and kind of keeping to the shadows and stuff, it's again a really cool option to have for the player.
And you know, Naughty Dog has a lot of experience. We learn a lot over the years making Uncharted. So just the fidelity of animation and what the animation team, which is so incredible, is able to achieve in this game. We completely redid our animation core movement player animation system for this game, just so we could get this more fluid feeling and being able to do all these things. We're talking about traversal, jump, running, all these things, and having it, hopefully if you see the demo, you feel like it's just so seamless, and that is such a big part of the way we make our games, that it never feels like a game. It just feels like I'm running and jumping over a thing, and that's how a person would do it.
And that's for Ellie and the enemies you face. They're using this animation system as well, so you're not seeing transitions from state to state. You're seeing someone that feels more like a human, and they come in and they check with each other and they move around more like real people, which again raises the threat for you.
Let's talk about this lush environment, which we saw a little bit of last night. When we talk about scope, what are we talking about? Like, how big is this game? How big are these landscapes?
How big is
I
this
know
game?
you love this game.
Pretty big.
Classic question.
It's a really big game, and it's looking like it might be one of our biggest, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely, we did not really check our ambition too much with this title. It's still very much a linear story. That's kind of crucial to the kind of storytelling we're after with this game. But I think you can see in the demo, just like when you look at just geographically the options that are in front of the player. I mean, the way the demo works is, it's just one possible playthrough through this pretty vast space. So with The Last of Us 1, kind of again, our catchphrase was wide linear. And we're pushing that even more this time. So I think if you look at the demo, you can kind of realize, like, oh, the player didn't have to go this way. They could have gone that way instead. I think it becomes kind of obvious of the width and the options that are available to the player.
And I think also, too, just blurring the lines between what is considered a combat space and what is like an exploration space, and that feeling you get sometimes in games of just like, oh, here's the combat area. We wanted every place to feel like it could have combat in it and that there's always a threat somewhere. So that, again, that seamlessness kind of transitions into our layout philosophy as well, where you kind of have a bunch of options and different ways to escape and things.
Now, I'm making big assumptions here, but from the gameplay demo I saw last night, it felt like the AI was a lot smarter. I mean, like Ellie.
Every time Naughty Dog makes a new game, they update the AI.
Terrifying to me, because in my video game brain,
the AI
like,
gets
that's
smarter
a
and
safe
smarter.
space. So how have no, it's not.
No safe space. Yeah.
So how have you guys evolved the AI?
There's a bunch of stuff that we've done under the hood that's probably like technical, not that interesting to talk about, but we're definitely pursuing a lot of communication between the AI. So in the first game, there were a lot of situations where as soon as one enemy spotted you, they kind of had this like, telepathic awareness and kind of everybody kind of knew where you were. So one thing you can see in the demo is that when they discover the body in the forest, the first person that you kill, like there's like kind of this awareness that like ripples out. Like they use this system of whistling to kind of communicate with each other, and gradually like more and more people know about your location. And when the reinforcements arrive, that the ill-fated Ethan, you see this kind of like moment of communication as they sync up with each other, and that's something we're definitely pursuing, is kind of like this knowledge propagation of like this group knows about you, this group doesn't, and a real communication between those people.
Yeah, systemic check-ins to get information, and just also just the way that the most important state of the AI for in my mind for this game is the search and how they search an environment, and it was such a big investment of tech in The Last of Us 1, and we've again just kind of rethinking that whole thing and just how do we get, adding the ability to check underneath. We now have prone, so the AI has to expand to accommodate for prone, so they have to know to look under stuff and pull you out and engage you. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just all these new mechanics that we've added, the AI has to account for. We can't just flip switch and it works. So it's a lot of work and it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, very much so. Enemy types. So we saw last night humans. Are we going to see the infected as well? Is this world still infected? Are they still a threat?
They're still infected in the game?
Very much so. And actually, we're expanding the infected gameplay space quite a bit as well. Can we say there's some new classes? There's some new classes. And it all has to, everything has to work well to get integrated into the narrative. We can't just willy-nilly act. Everything we're doing is we're trying to keep the world grounded and believable. It all make logical sense. And we feel like that's how we can best immerse the player in this journey. But yes, very much the infected are a real threat, not only to Ellie, but to all these other factions that Ellie faces against.
Okay, well, let's talk about crafting. What's new with crafting?
I think they kind of touched on it a little bit.
Probably the biggest single new feature is to be able to craft ammo. So in the first game, you were able to upgrade your melee weapons, and in this game, you're able to craft different arrow types as well. So we saw Ellie use the bomb arrow to great effect.
That was sick, by the way. That was my favorite part of the demo.
And just in general, as Kurt was mentioning before, we're looking to push everything, to take everything to the next level. But with each new crafting item that we add, we're looking to fill a pretty distinct gameplay niche. So Last of Us is in a world with a lot of RPGs, a lot of grenade launchers, so we needed kind of something that was a long-range splash damage mechanic, and so that kind of is what.
Oh yeah, he meant Last of Us does not have a war.
So
makes
every
sense.
kind of new element we
My bad,
add really focus on having a lot of elegance, having few mechanics that deliver a lot of options that really increase the dimensionality of the gameplay space.
It's a really important point is when we first start the project, we make this huge list of here are all the crazy things Ellie can craft. And then actually now a lot of the work is stripping stuff away, combining items, how do we make it as simple and digestible as possible so you can on the fly quickly make choices and you're not just inundated with the long list of things to choose from.
The huge menu and stuff, yeah.
Okay, well,
kind of like a Horizon. You got so many different weapons.
We've got a limited amount of time, so I want to start on story. Where do we open in The Last of Us Part 2?
They're not going to tell you.
We ended in Jackson. Where is she when we open?
Oh, where the game opens?
Yeah. Where's she at?
Well, let's just say where the demo opens. The game opens maybe somewhere different. But we're in Jackson. So this is the same place Joel and Ellie have, spoiler alert, where Joel and Ellie have ended at the end of the first game. That's where we are now 4 years later, if my math is right. And we see that now Ellie is part of this community. She's part of these patrols to
she's
keep
part
Jackson
of the patrols.
Safe.
Interesting.
And she has this relationship with Dina and her friend Jesse.
Okay, so who is this? Tell me about this new faction. I've got a word written down here. Seraphites. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Seraphites. So that's the religious group we showed off at the Paris cutscene, the hanging cutscene, and that's the same group that Ellie faces against in Seattle.
Right. So they're the bad guys.
Right. So they are.
So the trailer goes back to Seattle.
It's all relative in the world of The Last of Us. We really try to humanize everybody, to say everybody has a real objective. They're trying to keep themselves safe. How do we humanize them? Right now you're seeing one aspect of them, so they might come off as, okay, these are the bad, cultish people. But there's a lot more dimension and complexity to them that you'll explore when you play the final game. Okay,
so tell me more about this community that Ellie is part of. What's her life in Jackson like?
It's kind of normal. She gets to, they go to a festival, they have electricity, you get to have friends, you get to party, they sometimes watch movies, and then that shit goes down.
Interesting. I wonder what kind of pop culture thing they'll have.
That's where we're going to end that. I mean, the big question on everyone's lips is Joel, right?
Yeah.
So he's missing, but he's mentioned. He's he's called Ellie's old man. So where is Joel at this point in time?
It's called suspense, Lucy.
First of all, you're assuming they're talking about Joel. It could be some other father figure.
No,
that came
don't
before you.
do it, Neil.
It's Joel. It's Joel. We're talking about Joel. It's Joel.
Oh, you'll snake in the
so
grass.
he's somewhere there in Jackson. Yeah, he's somewhere out there.
Okay,
I don't
so
think
he's
it ends
somewhere
well
out
with
there.
Joel,
That's
man.
all we're gonna.
I
that's all
honestly
we're gonna
don't.
get.
I honestly
That's all
don't.
you're
No
gonna
way.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Let's move on to new characters then. So last night we were introduced to Jesse and Dina. Who are they, and what kind of a role do they play in Ellie's life?
So they're all part of this.
New
Like
faction.
everyone in Jackson has a
Well,
role.
another
these
faction,
three
the patrol.
characters, how they contribute to the community. They go on these patrols outside of town to make sure there are no infected coming in, no other marauders. Jesse is kind of the leader of this group, so you hear that Joel's kind of harassing him about making sure he's safe whenever Ellie goes out. And as soon as, like, I don't know if I'm revealing too much, whatever. As soon as Ellie and Joel settled in Jackson, like, Ellie and Dina have hit it off. And at the time, Dina was girlfriends with Jesse, but they've been best friends ever since until this night.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that night that was like
well,
the first
I
kiss type vibe.
I think that, we
in the
should
demo.
pause for a second because I really want to get inside the heads of these characters and really who better to talk about them than the actors who play them. So I'd just love to hear a big round of applause
Ashley
for
Johnson.
Shannon Woodward,
Ashley Johnson.
who
Nice.
plays Dina, and Ashley Johnson, who is our Ellie. Woo! Welcome. It is so good to see you guys here.
It's good to be here. Hi, everybody.
Now, how did you both feel after last night?
Excited?
Yeah, excited, and of course, before, nervous. Just.
It's a good thing you're
all
not
the
nervous
feelings.
now. It's a good thing. You're totally
What?
It's a good thing you're not nervous now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we've been keeping it under wraps for so long. It was like I felt like I had like Stockholm syndrome. Even after the feed went, I was like, wait, am I allowed to say that I'm in the game still? And they were like, yes. I was like, but are you sure? So yeah, really excited.
Ashley, Ellie's been through a lot since you first started playing her. When did you first when did you first start as Ellie? Was that like 2011 or?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
2010?
Yeah.
I think it's maybe 2010.
I think it was 2010.
Yeah.
Which is when I
I
first
can't believe it's
auditioned
been that
for
long.
the part.
Right.
And then
It's
so
been a long time.
I've been in this character's shoes for a long time now, so she's very near.
There's
and
a lot of people still playing this
So
game.
you saw her fighting last night, and it was pretty vicious. Like I think we can all agree. Like for me, I was like, oh my god, these poor NPCs, like they're really suffering.
Yeah.
How did you feel sort of watching that combat and seeing how evolved she's become as a fighter?
Yeah, that was something that we've been talking about and was sort of a, I don't want to say a concern, but something, that I was, to have a young female sort of doing all of the combat, you want to make it believable, and I think they did such a fantastic job with it where, figuring out, with range weapons, and it's exciting to me, and I think they sort of figured out a perfect balance of how Ellie would fight and being her size, and she's extremely capable, and I think that's pretty badass.
It's going to be interesting how it plays
Shannon,
out, though.
tell us about how you came aboard this project.
It's a great
Well,
question.
it was really desperate. Oh, you laugh now.
I like this panel
So,
a lot more than
Hallie
the other one.
Gross, who works on the game with Neil, actually wrote on Westworld the first season, and so we were friendly. And we were at like a social event of some kind at some point when we were on hiatus, and I was like, what are you up to? And she's like, oh, I'm actually, I'm writing at Naughty Dog. I was like, the video game company? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, what are you doing at Naughty Dog, writing the Schmastabus Schmoo? And they hadn't announced the game yet. And she was like, no, I'm not allowed to talk about it. And I was like, oh my God, you are? It's okay. I won't tell anybody. That's awesome. And I was like, that's my favorite game. I'm obsessed with it. And I like made a joke about like how I would like die to have a line in the game. And she was like, oh, I'll tell Neil. And I was like, oh, okay, but you don't have to. I just like, I'm a big fan. And it kind of like went back and forth, and like 6 months later, she eventually was like, well, there's a role, but you'd have to audition. And I was like, I act like every day. I'm not afraid of that. And then I auditioned a couple times, and then I ended up here, and I'm still very excited about it.
That's great.
I told,
That's pretty good. I wish they would release those auditions.
Yeah, Hallie came up
That'd
to
be
me
cool.
and said, yeah, this actress, Shannon, she's like a fan of the game. Can she come to audition? I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, we'll check it out. And it was like the worst audition day because the electricity went out, so we had to like rehearse in the kitchen. All the milk is spoiling, so it just stinks. There's helicopters outside. Ashley was unavailable.
And
so
I was like 40 minutes
We brought
late.
in like Laura.
car went off the freeway.
We brought in Laura Bailey to read as Ellie for this scene. And after, it's this really emotional scene. And after we were done, I just looked at Hallie. I was like, what the hell? Like, that was one of the best auditions I've ever seen.
Yes.
And I was like,
Emotional scene.
Guys,
Maybe this character's
you know
death.
what?
I think
just to
it's a very
torture her,
important
let's
scene.
bring her in for round 2. And then she did another set of scenes with Ashley just to make sure they had the chemistry. And it's really awesome to see these two together. They have a ton of chemistry.
So it wasn't the spoiled milk that made her act so well. That was like.
I think we're just trying to get out of it. Just sign her like.
Added a lot of tension. Yeah, it was. We got to in the second round. We got to audition together, and
she already had the job, to be fair.
well, who knows? Yeah, and she was so just fantastic. Like so many amazing actors came in, but we definitely did have chemistry from the get-go, and she's just challenges me to be a better actor, and it was just like, it was awesome. Yeah, I'm stoked.
So sweet.
Yeah.
It was
It's
so
really
fun.
cool that they have like.
I was just like, even if they don't hire me, they're gonna let me pretend to be in this for like 25 minutes, and I'm gonna really go for it.
an actor in the
Sometimes
roles
you get to
versus
read
like
for really
a
cool
voice
things, and,
actor.
Like, that's the thing you have to just enjoy. Is like somebody's gonna let me do this, and they're gonna watch me do it for like 15 minutes, even if I bomb. Great story if you do. I'm very glad it didn't go that way for me this time.
I wonder how
Shannon,
it'll play
a lot
out.
of people know
It's
you,
interesting.
Most people know you as Elsie from Westworld. What's the fan reaction been like for you?
I don't know. I don't leave my house much. You have to ask them. What do you guys? You guys liking it? Thanks. They seem excited.
Sounds like it's been very positive. All right, I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that scene. I mean, you guys talk about chemistry. There was a lot of chemistry in that scene last night. Now, where does this scene take place? It's in a church. Where is it? Where are we?
Jackson.
Yeah, so
You already answered
we're
that.
in Jackson. They have these events. They have parties. This is one of those situations where they have they're having this town celebration. People can come in, relax, eat, dance, and that's where these two dance.
Okay, tell me about shooting this scene.
First of all, I did really do that dance at the beginning.
That is true.
Several
Yeah.
days of rehearsal.
One of the first things that Shannon had to do, we brought her in with a dance choreographer and learned this whole crazy routine. It was like a 3-minute thing, and we used 5 seconds of it.
I was exhausted every time. It was running in circles and anyway. So yeah. Then there's
No,
this
it's because
other
in the
dance.
scene there are dozens of characters, but we can only do, I forget the number. It's 8 or 9 characters at a time. So we had to have this whole dance troupe that came in. We had to shoot a
Interesting.
chunk. Okay, there's going to be this corner, and then we're going to shoot another chunk of this corner, and another chunk of this corner. Then a separate day we brought in people with kids and kids running around. We had to shoot that. Then another day we brought our actors in to shoot the dramatic stuff. So and then we all to stitch it all together to make it seem seamless and full and
It's very fascinating how they do that.
And when we did that was a year ago.
It was a year ago.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
It was a long
crazy.
time ago.
That is pretty
It's the
crazy.
best, the longest secret I ever kept.
I mean, for me, I mentioned this to a lot of people last night. It was the first video game kiss I think I've ever seen where I haven't gone, oh, that's a little bit weird. It's a little bit uncanny valley. I'm a little bit weirded out by it all. It just seemed really, really natural. It felt really natural. It looked really natural.
We were actually just talking about, what was it, Crafty?
Yeah.
She was like, we're out of mac and cheese. And I was like, no.
I mean, let's talk about the performance capture techniques that you're using this time around.
Yeah, so we have facial capture this time around. It's a more advanced version of what we had even on Uncharted 4, more complicated rigs for faces. But the problem you have when you have an intimate scene like this is you have these cameras in front of you, so two actors can get close.
It is so awkward.
We'll
get to the awkward part. We'll get to the awkward part. So first, when we're going to shoot this scene, we're like, okay, let's just get the most natural performance we can, as much as you can in like a white room that looks like an insane asylum when you're wearing like these crazy suits. So we took the cameras off and we said, let's just get the best reference footage we can for our animators. We were lucky that we have like amazing, super talented animators at Naughty Dog. So we shot it that way. They kissed. We did a few takes. And, that's a little awkward. And then we're like, okay, but our animators like something to start with. Can we get some performance on the face? So let's put the cameras back on. And then they have to, like, get really close and then turn to the side and pretend to kiss each other, even though they're just kissing the air. And they love that part.
It's our favorite part. We try to, like, put our cheeks so they touch, so it felt like kind of like intimacy. We were just like... And I'm like, don't look. Do not look.
Yeah, so a little awkward.
Did you make the noises? I just want to know if you made the
No,
noises.
but it's sort of one of those things, too, when you get close, because they're both in the same position for both people. So sometimes you're trying to stay in the moment, and then it's like clank, 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 clank.
Yeah, they click.
And then you kind of have to, like, unhook and then sort of rearrange
your
the camera.
cables get tangled. These suits have Velcro. You get stuck to each other.
Yeah, my hands kept getting... They wrapped them because they kept getting stuck on her...
that's right.
This is easily the most intense and also hysterical still from anything I've ever seen. It just really has so much duality. Yeah, there was a lot of sticking.
I would love to have them to see more of the behind the scenes that they have. I'm sure they have all this footage, like they show the
they gave an
the opera with Joel
and
the previous game.
A lot of credit to our animators that have kind of set with that reference footage and had to touch things, and like our riggers have to develop whole new tech for the face, and you see like the way Ellie nose squishes and the cheeks move against each other. That's all tech that we didn't have before, just to be able to create a scene like that.
I mean, I did notice that Ellie does look a little bit more like Ashley this time around, and obviously that was on purpose. And tell me about how you've evolved that look.
So we have Soa, one of our lead character modelers. She did a pass on taking Ellie from the first game and then aging her up. And then at the same time, we created a digital double for Ashley, just so we can really get as close of a performance as we can to what Ashley does. And then we did a blend where we took, I think, 40% of Ashley's face with this model that was crafted from scratch. And that's the Ellie we've ended up with. So we're saying as she's aging,
it's pretty
taking more
cool.
of like
That's really
Ashley's
cool
characteristics, and that gives us a much more natural, nuanced performance.
How does that feel for you?
It's it's weird. It's weird watching it because I think it's my lips and stuff, and so whenever I watch it, I feel like covering part of my face because I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's really cool. I think they've done such a beautiful job with it. I mean, the skin and it looks so beautiful. I'm not like complimenting myself. I'm like, I don't mean that.
You can compliment yourself.
60% beautiful.
I don't mean that. The 60% is on point.
But yeah,
the Shanna
tech
character
that
model
has
doesn't
gone
really
into
look
the
like her, though.
character
That's why I
is
didn't know who it was.
Extraordinary. Where like we had this like incredibly technical programmer, like one of our top minds at the studio, who spent months redoing our eyeballs, and now like the eyeballs are fully refractive. They have like internal reflections that get that like kind of sparkle in the eye and stuff. So all of this stuff that is like very subtle but really creates this nuanced, natural appearance, and it's a lot of tech. It's like the synergy. It's the cocktail of the tech and the performance.
I don't think we could have picked a harder scene to do with like this highly detailed characters with hair and like bokeh blurred out lights behind it that like highlights from behind, and Just like the hardest thing to do in a video game is like transparent hair with.
See, that's the kind of stuff I like them to talk about.
Sorting things that have alpha mask is really difficult, and trying to do it with like Dina especially has all these like curly hair and flyaways, which I'm familiar with Frizz. It's really hard to render, but our team of really
it looks great.
Pulled it off.
That's the lighting makes the whole game.
Of course I have to ask because I think I'll be murdered if and I know the answer. What's the release date?
You're never gonna say. The guy.
So we're gonna disappoint people. We've learned our lesson. We're not gonna say the release date until we're very close to release. So we're not very close to release. Is the only thing we'll say.
Fair. Look, finally, I just want to thank you all so much.
Late 2019.
I also just want to thank you on behalf of the LGBTQ community as well for actually being so bold and putting that out there on the E3 stage. I thought was one of the bravest things I've ever seen. And yeah, I'm getting a bit choked up just talking about it. So thank you. And yeah, we're really, really excited to see what you're going to bring out next. That's it. That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much, everyone. Neil, Anthony, Kurt, Shannon, Ashley.
Thanks, guys.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you. Have a good E3.
Thanks.
All right, that's awesome. I mean, that's a very great panel. I enjoyed that panel a lot more than I think they did. What was it, in Paris? Yeah, the Paris Game Week panel. I think that one, no, PSX. The PSX panel, I think that one was like a little bit just more all over the place. But that one had like a clear thing. They had things to talk about that they can't talk about. One of the, like I said earlier, it's like one of the hardest things is to get to Naughty Dog to talk. And it looks like they had a lot to say regarding the game's demo itself. They were talking about the nuances, the details, the tension. And when I do the trailer breakdown, I saw a lot of that while I was watching live, so I cannot wait to do the trailer breakdown to talk about this, to use this as a frame of reference of the intensity. All those kinds of things will be awesome to have so I'm glad I watched this panel so I could use that in the breakdown. But all that is evident, man. The details is what sells the game. The details is what makes Naughty Dog strong. The details is what's going to make this game great. And if you don't see those details, you're not going to see the leaps and bounds it is over The Last of Us. Because I always felt like The Last of Us movement was so staggered, but this is quite interesting to see. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys watching along with this bad boy. I wanted to get out a little bit earlier, but with my current situation with kids and all, with a kid and all, I have to upload it when I can. So prepare for that trailer breakdown soon. I cannot wait to do that and have it like in a better high quality for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, oh yeah, peace. Adios, guys. Bye. And a shout out to the people at patreon.com/SanchoWest. These Patreon supporters make the dream work. So here are your monthly shout outs. Shout outs to Dylan K, Chris G, Frederick I, Adman and Charles and Jody, Kayla S, Elise G, Deke Pyro, Tefel, Logger, Daniel H, Clifford B, Samuel J, Michael C, Fromage, AP Normal, Holy Night Clown, Shane B, Natasha R, Dylan T, Raphael B, Matt H, Friends You With Me, Aiden, Antoine B.S., Mundo, Lucky Pro, K Does Stuff, Matt B, Frankie Westside, Danny W, Jonathan B, A.N.T. Clark, B.S., Kevin R, John H, B. Jackie, Gwen Stacy Lives, Carrie, Dylan F, Theo P, Iro R, Michael O, and Jacob B. I really do appreciate you guys. If you guys are making everything awesome, you know how much you guys mean to me every month. You guys do what you can and you contribute. And if you'd like to join, go to patreon.com/SanchoWest to be in the monthly shout outs. Thank you guys so much for your support. I'll see you guys next time. Yeah. Peace.